Hey gang, it's your buddy Platt, and today we're continuing our wine series. Today we're going to move the wine series a little east to Japan. That's right, we're going to talk about sake. Sake is also known as Japanese rice wine. The term sake itself, or the way we use in the U.S., is not the way they use in Japan. Over there, the term sake is kind of a generic catch-all for any alcoholic beverage. That being said, if an American one over there ordered sake, they would know what we're asking for. It is referred to as wine. I'm putting it in the wine series. A lot of your liquor stores will have sake in or near the wine section. In all honesty, it's probably closer to a beer, or in the sense that it comes from grain and not from fruit, and it's brewed and not pressed or juiced. You know, a generic fruit wine will press a fruit, get some juice, throw some yeast, whatever. This has to go through a special brewing process, so it's kind of a hybrid. To kind of compare and contrast the three, most commercial beers are between 3 and 9% alcohol by volume. Wines are 9 to 16% alcohol by volume. Sake is generally 18 to 20% alcohol by volume, though some get diluted down to roughly 15%. So out of the three, sake tends to be the higher alcohol content beverage. I'm going to say right now, forgive me if I have to look down my notes. All these terms are in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, so I have to refer the notes some this time. There are two main types of sake. There's a Futsū-shu, which is their basic sake, or best way to compare it is to like table wines in France and Italy. Then they have Tokatai meishō-shu. That is special designation sake. That compares to your AOC, DOCs in European wines. Higher level also have to follow certain procedures, rules on their designation. There's roughly 8 different categories of special designation sake. We're not going to go through all of them, but just to say the highest of the 8 is Junmai-shu sake. That's the highest grade, and the lowest of the 8 is Ginjō-shu, and that's the lowest of the 8. For the 8, the alcohol comes just from the fermentation of rice. Other 4 of the 8, a small percentage of the alcohol comes from distilled spirits being added. Sometimes up to 10% by volume of distilled spirits is added. If you're wanting to just try rice wine that has all its alcohol made just from rice, you will look for the term Junmai-shu. Pure rice brewed is what the term is. So if you see it on the bottle, you know they have not added additional distilled spirits. How these sakes are ranked is by how polished the rice is. A little bit later we'll get into how sake is made, but just to say that they take a grain of rice, and the exterior of most rice will have a husk or a hull or whatever on the exterior, and that's where a lot of proteins are and some tannins. That gets polished away because what we want is on the inside, the starches, or the starches that will hopefully become sugar and, you know, something for the yeast to work in. So they polish this rice down, or they polish off that. Sometimes they'll polish it down to 70% of original volume. Sometimes it's 50%. Sometimes as low as 30%. And the more of this highly polished rice in the sake batch, the higher graded the sake is. So that's how they kind of rank these. Also by the percentage of what's called koji, and again we'll go on that in the brewing part. A few quick terms I want to go over that you may run into. Namazaki, that is unpasteurized sake. We have Nagori, which is unfiltered. It's the cloudy sake. If you've ever seen the cloudy sake before, that's Nagori. We have Ginjō-shu, which is undiluted. I told you before there's some sakes get diluted down a little bit. That's for undiluted. And there's Koshu, which is aged sake. Not a lot of sake is aged. As we learned in wines, wines with higher acid, higher alcohol tend to do better in aging. There's not much acid in the rice, so it doesn't lend itself to aging, but there are some aged sakes out there, and there's some minor aging in the process. To quickly go through the process, sake making is a very complicated process. Not something I can fit necessarily in this video. Maybe somewhere down the line I might try to make sake. I've made rice wine before, and I'll throw that video up here. But actual sake making is a little different than rice wine making. And I know there's some kits out there, so that may be something I tackle. But it's a very in-depth process, so I'll just go over the basics of it. Someone referred to as a tojai, which is a sake brewer, will take special rice that they use for sake. The name of the rice is Yamada Nishiki. That's a mouthful. Anyway, they take that rice and they'll polish it down, various degrees of finish, and then they'll start soaking and washing the rice, drying it, then soaking it again, and this takes a several-day process. And while this is going on, they take a portion of that rice to a separate room where they inoculate it with something called koji. Koji is a mold spore that kicks in the enzymes or creates enzymes that will turn that starch into sugar. Rice does not naturally have that, unlike barley and certain grains that you'll work with in home brewing. Rice does not have that, so it needs that koji. So they'll inoculate this small portion of rice with that koji. Once that gets to working, they'll come back, bring that koji rice in with the other rice, water, and yeast and start to brew. And that koji will start turning all that starch in the rice into sugar, and the yeast is there to come in and do what it's supposed to do and give us beautiful alcohol. The particular sake we're going to try today is Hakatsura Draft Sake. Now, the term draft sake, don't get thrown off with that. That's basically a namazaki sake in the sense that it's unfiltered or unpasteurized. Think of it a little bit as like beer here in America. Most of your bottled beer is flash pasteurized, but your keg beer or draft beer is not pasteurized. This is not pasteurized like draft beer, but it is microfiltered and it is fairly clear. Another way they judge sake over there is by how sweet it is or how dry. They have a scale. -3 is very sweet to +10, which is very dry. This comes in at +4, so it's kind of in the middle, slightly on the drier side. One quick interesting note on this sake. I was looking on the website, and they were doing food pairings with their various sakes, and they recommended this sake with roast beef. So maybe the next time I head to Arby's, I might have to sneak a bottle in. Let's give this a try. All right. All right, yeah, it's perfectly clear. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like when I've been in like distilleries, like almost like a fresh corn whiskey coming off the still. That's, you could smell that sweetness, coming off there, and there's kind of a yeast funkiness almost, and very interesting. Let's give it a try. That is not that sweet. And surprisingly not as viscous as I thought. You envision the really heavier, sweeter sakes that you would see. I bartended in restaurants where we sold sake and sake bombs, or I had sake spill on me. It's kind of thick and sweet. This is less viscous. Definitely not as sweet. Yeah, there's some sweetness, but just nice, clean liquid, almost, for lack of a better term. Not a lot of flavor per se, but goes down as easy. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video. Let's YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.